This is Brian, screenfiles.com and review. What I'm looking at today is 2025's The Monkey, directed by Osgood Perkins. The Monkey is one of those rare movies where you can tell exactly what's going to happen from the trailers. Sure, there are occasionally some trailers who give away major plot points, but that's not what I'm talking about. Literally, the entire movie is contained in those trailers. Now, that's on a macro level. On a micro level, there are things that happen to certain individuals for reasons which you're not aware of unless you see the movie. But, once again, it's unusual that a movie lays out its main themes and ideas so blatant. Namely, these two young people, twins, happen to find this toy monkey which causes violence to people is the heart and soul of the movie. And this is not a case of the monkey being badly written. It's not. It's a case that simply the writer and director, Osgood Perkins, didn't embellish the story very much. Now keep in mind, I haven't read the Stephen King story that The Monkey is based upon, but this movie is so lean, it implies at any rate that there's not a lot to that story, and that's okay. Not every story has to be the 10 Commandments or Moby Dick. There are smaller stories, and The Monkey is based upon a short story, so there's not a lot to it. And as I said, Osgood Perkins doesn't add to that necessarily. He seems to be taking what's there and running with it. And that really works, because a lot of directors, what they often will do is have a relatively short story and pad it with different characters and situations not in the original. And that's irritating, because oftentimes it feels padded. Padded for padded's sake, by the way, which is not great. With this movie, it's very lean in terms of its story, but it doesn't feel like he's trying to make it anything more than what it is, which I personally appreciate. If you're familiar with the work of Osgood Perkins, you know that he's a very methodical, very patient director. You've seen movies like I'm the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House or The Black Coat's Daughter. You likely took from them that he is very much into atmospherics. He's very much into letting events happen at their own pace as opposed to rushing them. And so his movies can come off boring if you're not really paying attention to it. Another thing that might lead to that impression is that he's not into violence, gratuitous or otherwise, but he likes the slow burn. He likes to give situations a time to build gradually and have horrific things come from them. But that horrific doesn't necessarily have to be violent. And being familiar with his work, the trailers for The Monkey kind of made me uneasy because they're unlike anything that I've ever seen from him as a director. And that's not to say that I wish that all horror movies were made in the fashion of an Osgood Perkins horror movie, because I really don't wish that. I like the variety you can find in the horror genre. No matter what you're looking for, if you look carefully enough, you probably can find it. And that's an aspect of Osgood Perkins' work that I particularly enjoy. Namely, it's very distinctive, and it's not like anyone else's. His direction is not one size fits all. As I said earlier, some people may find it boring, and I understand why they might. But it's kind of good if you're in a horror that you can find something that suits your taste, even if it's outside of what most people might traditionally enjoy. The story of The Monkey revolves around these two twins. When they're young, they're played by Christian Convery, and older by Theo James. Though, watching the movie, I actually didn't know that the two young twins were played by the same actor. Their performances are polar opposites of each other, and there are tweaks to the way they look that make them look like distinctly different people. I just thought they were different actors. That really worked for me. And in fact, it kind of knocked me off a little when I saw that the adult twins were played by Theo James. Both portrayals of Theo James look very much like Theo James, but the younger siblings, not so much. It was kind of unusual. In any case, they're being raised by their mother Laura, played by Tatiana Maslany, and her husband has left her and the children. So they're alone, they're going through their father's stuff. I believe he was an airline pilot. I mention that because he has things from faraway places and so on. And they find a toy monkey. Disaster upon the family fairly early in the movie. And so the bulk of the film is spent with trying to get rid of this thing. What's interesting about this monkey is that there's no rhyme or reason for what it does. It just does it. The movie doesn't have a scene where you see the twins researching this monkey and trying to find out where it came from, yada yada yada. The movie does not care about that. All the movie cares about is the monkey doing its thing, and the twins, and later Theo James as the adult version of the twins, trying to stop it by, if not destroying it, putting it away somewhere where it can never be found again. The monkey is an out-and-out comedy. And that's a surprise to me because it's unlike anything I've ever seen from Osgood Perkins. And that he's able to handle comedy so adroitly was an interesting thing to discover and quite welcome. Though I also mentioned earlier in some of his other movies that there is little, if any, actual violence. It may be implied, but it's not typically seen. And this is relevant because while the monkey is the goriest thing I've ever seen from the director, it's the way that the gore is depicted that makes me feel that he is not exactly comfortable with physical violence in his movies. Namely, it's very exploding, which is to say people blow up. While initially very shocking, after the second or third time of it happening, variations of the same idea mainly, it becomes slightly less so. And I think the movie on the whole would have been a lot more intense if people weren't exploding for various reasons. It happens at least, as I said, 2 or 3 times, and it's not that it's bad, it's that it's kind of cartoony. And in fact, I would say that's the nature of most of the violence in this movie, namely barely cartoony. And for me, that's oftentimes funny in and of itself. The monkey is, as I said, something that I would not have expected from Osgood Perkins, and in that capacity it really works. I also mentioned that he wrote and directed it, which implies to me that he can handle comedy. And that's not to say that I want him to stop with the more introspective, the more atmospheric and brooding genre films that he traditionally makes, but it's good to know that he can handle things a little outside his comfort zone. So what do you think? This is Brian with ScreenFiles.com and Review. If you agree, disagree, let me know down below. And as usual, consider a like, follow, or buy me a coffee.